One of the important things for us in F3 is to not leave any man behind. And when we lost Cardinal, we knew that we couldn't leave his family behind. So we had to step up and stand in that gap.
The difficulty and the hardship that we went through that morning really did something to draw us together. And what we realized is that's what happens every morning in F3 across the world, where that's happening. Guys are coming together, doing hard things, doing difficult things together. And that brotherhood, because of the support that you need, does something to someone's life. And we want that for every man in this nation.
Have you ever finished a beatdown, the gloom is fading to sunrise, and you think to yourself, what a cool thing I get to do, adult recess with my brothers?
Do I ever think that?
Well, there's a guy
A lot of guys think that.
who's wishing he had what you do, but guess what? You can do something about it. You see, there's this thing called the Accelerate campaign.
Go on.
And it goes from October 1st through October 31st, and it's a time for all of us to step up so that a guy can receive this gift. And don't forget, we were all once that guy. And aren't you glad that the high impact men who came before you gave generously so that you could be unlocked?
Wow. What is that?
This is the Accelerate hype chain, baby.
So that, you know what that reminds me of?
Flavor Flav, I hope.
No. Like the turnover chain. Like if you intercept a ball, you wear something like that around your neck, or shoulder pads or something like that.
The turnover chain?
Yeah.
Is it like a mark of shame or something? I don't understand.
No, it's for the guy. So a guy intercepts a ball, he goes to
Right.
the sidelines, and then they put like a chain around his neck, and it's got
It's an honorarium to say,
Yeah.
way to go.
identifying the
for
fact that he made a big play.
a good play. Well, it's kind of like that.
If you're going to be a winner, you're going to need a coach.
Sharpening doesn't happen by accident. A blade left untouched will rust, and a man left unchallenged will stagnate. Every man needs friction, resistance, and a whetstone to grind away weakness and reveal his true edge. Welcome to the Whetstone, where we reject comfort, disrupt the status quo, and forge men ready for impact. Hosted by Dredd, Dark Helmet, and me, the Plague. This is where men step out of the drift and into acceleration, because iron sharpens iron, and no man sharpens alone.
So here's the deal, though, but just to kind of add to what you said there, Plague, it is this month, and I appreciate when guys, say things like, hey, be generous, and I think that's important. And I think that for a lot of men, and this is going to hurt some feelings, and I don't mean it to, but it may, a lot of guys think to themselves a couple things. One, if it's just a bunch of guys working out in a parking lot for free, what do we need money for? That's a common thing that the guys say. And look, the facts are the facts. And that is, it is a bunch of guys working out in a parking lot that is part of a larger organization that is all over the entire world trying to unlock men. Right? That's what we're for. And that takes resources, whether you like it or whether you don't like it. You don't have to give to it if you don't want to. You can continue to be a taker only. I don't mind. I'm not mad at you. Like, sincerely, and I know it sounds negative when I say it that way, but you can do that if you want to, and I'm not mad at you for it. But I will say this. Someone gave it to you, and one of the best ways that you can give it to another man outside of telling him is by donating. Because the things that we are doing at a national level to try and make awareness greater in the general populace are starting to yield a lot of fruit. And those things cost money, and lawyers cost money, and accountants cost money, and travel for guys to go around to different places and do things cost money. And sometimes guys are like, well, you can just pay for that yourself, can't you? Yes, I am in a position, thankfully blessed, right? Where if I needed to do it myself, I could. I have those blessings. But do you want the ability to be a leader in F3 contingent upon a man's income? Right. That sounds like a bad idea to me, right? I want it on the quality of his leadership, right? I don't want it to be contingent upon his income or his disposable means, right? So The nation takes care of some of those kinds of things, and those are the kinds of things that cost money. And if you don't like that, I understand. That's okay. Keep working out for free. We're not mad at you. Unlock your heart. Lead your community. I'm not mad, right? But if you feel like it's something that you want to help leave a legacy, right? You want to give it away to the next man and make it so that men years and years from now don't have to worry about some of these kinds of things, then by golly, you know what? Commit. It's okay to commit and open up your wallet and to give to the cause, right? So you can go to the F3 webpage, f3nation.com, go to give, and you will find yourself at the appropriate place to give to the F3 Foundation.
I love it.
Now,
I know you're not mad, but
Go
it
on.
sounds like you might be disappointed.
I would be disappointed, yes.
Okay. So that is why
I know we're kind of
for
joking, but
every-
you know something?
For
Go
every
ahead.
man
Oh, here we go.
who does not donate, we're going to send you a chain with a dark helmet's face on it.
That's right.
That
Sad.
says,
Like,
I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah.
And you're going
You have to wear it.
You're going to wear that.
Now,
Wear it. You know, it's when we say F3 is free,
Yeah.
we mean for you, but we don't mean for us because it costs money to run this ship, believe it or not. Not much,
not a lot.
but
Not
not a lot.
And I will say, we've made a concerted effort as a board and as an SLT to reduce, and we all agreed on this together. You know, we said, hey, what can we do to make things more missional, you know, and thin it down to the absolute necessities, right? Razor, word of the year, right?
That's right.
Let's
Right.
get this thing down to the absolute essentials. And so we've reduced expenses by about 60% over what they were.
Yep.
That's huge.
That is.
And they were already thin, friends. So it does not take a ton,
Nope.
but it does take. It does take.
I'm doing
So,
my part, and there's more fat to cut on.
Amen.
Really considering not flying first class anymore.
That's
I
decent
know.
of you.
It's a sacrifice, but no, seriously,
willing to
it's
make
a
it.
sacrifice I'm willing to
Man,
make.
what a guy. What a
Because
guy.
you don't need
Yeah.
the socks that they give you in first class anymore.
Oh, we had to get it around here somehow. I was
Right?
going to
Tell
go
us
to.
more.
I was
Yeah.
going to go to. If you donate if you make a monthly donation and sign up for a monthly donation, you get a gift. Usually, it's like a way to. In the past, it's been hats and things like that. This year, you can get. There's a hat you can get. There's an emblem for your car that you can get, like a chrome F3 logo, which is
I
really
have
nice.
one.
I have it on mine.
I got
Yep.
one. Yep.
Have it on mine. It's very nice. Or you can get this hoodie.
Got that
pullover
too.
hoodie,
I have
which is
that
kind
too.
of nice. I know, just got mine as well. And they're
Yeah.
really nice. One thing you cannot get though, F3 socks, because you know why? If you want to be a sock kind of guy, you got to earn it. You got to earn it.
That's
Gotta
right.
earn the
Earn it,
socks.
you got to.
You know,
I was listening to this podcast the other night when I was washing the dishes,
Uh-huh.
and my daughter comes in and she's like, "Are you listening to your own podcast?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "Why?" I said, "I want to make sure that I'm consistent. You know, that I'm not saying things that incorrect, whatever. Need to make a correction." And she said, "Oh, okay." And she says, "It's not that you like the sound of your own voice." I said, "That too, to a lesser degree." So anyway, she hears the thing about the F3 socks. She says, "What's this deal with the F3 socks and the fire ants? I don't understand." And I said, "We have particular socks that we wear that we purchase, and they're really excellent." She goes, "Socks? Socks are socks." I said, au contraire, recent college grad. They're not. Not all socks are made equal. I said, and I happen to be wearing, at the moment she did that, I was wearing.
No.
And oh yeah, of course, almost always am.
Yeah.
So
of course.
I pull up the leg of my pants and she looks at those and I said, "What do you think?" And she said, "I'm in a committed relationship with a young man that I am very fond of. But if I met another guy wearing those socks, I'd probably leave him for that guy." So
You know why? Because life is too short to
short,
wear crappy socks.
wear crappy socks. Stay away from my daughter if you get them. I don't need no issues.
And we're
back.
Our lack of creativity when it comes to F3 socks is I don't know, sad,
A little.
but not surprising.
Not
I'm
surprised.
disappointed in you.
I am curious.
I'll wear an emblem around my neck.
So the F3 socks, does some of the proceeds from those go to
Always.
also support the
Everything
mission, right?
sold through the Mud Gear store everything's sold through the F3 Gear Store. Proceeds, a portion of the proceeds go back to. In
Yep.
fact, if you want to know the bare bones of the whole deal, be a little more transparent here. I'll tell you, the profit that Malco makes, he donates that amount as well, right? So it's a split.
Nice.
To F3.
And I know,
Roughly.
I mean, it's not a huge amount, but when we were putting this podcast together and we said, hey, let's put it out on YouTube, one of the things we're trying to do there is also like through YouTube, right? Like all of that money is going back to the mission, and it's
Yep.
Yeah. Same thing. I had a guy the other day. I was like, why are there always so many ads on these on the pre-roll? And I'm like,
there's usually 4 ads because we advertised in order to. I mean, and it's not a ton of money, right? Because you guys don't spread the podcast around. But if they would like and subscribe, it would help people find us.
That would be
Right.
and
And really, and leave a review.
Yeah, leave a review. It really would help people
It
find
really
us.
does help people find us. Well, okay, but if you listen to Art of Manliness podcast, he's used to spread them out, but now he does them like right in it was a couple in the beginning. He'll have like 10, 11 of them.
Oh yeah.
It's really long.
Yeah,
advertising,
so it does.
you know.
We do pull in a tiny bit of money from monetizing the podcast.
But
Okay.
if people would like, subscribe, and leave a review and share it with all your friends, it would help a lot.
We'd pull in.
It
more
really
money.
would help people find us.
It really would help people find us.
So I do our last episode, we got into Minivan Centurion, and
Never heard of it.
I did. I was talking to the Nation's Milk this morning, and he was like, "Yeah, the carton."
It's the Nation's
and
Carton and the Daily Milk. Don't
the
mix
Daily Milk. The Daily Milk and the Nation's Carton. Same guy.
Yeah.
Okay,
same guy.
got it. Same guy.
Yeah, but
So
don't
I
mix it.
was telling him about. He was like, "Oh yeah, what was it? What's this Minivan Centurion thing?" And so I did want to just. Because I was telling him, I was like, well, have you gone to the Collision Learner blog? Because you can read it all. And he wasn't aware it was out there. So I thought I would just mention a guy's, I think it's collisionlearner.org. There's a Minivan Centurion blog. Is it com or org?
I'm looking it up right now. It's com.
Okay. Collisionlearner.com.
Collisionlearner, one word.com.
And they can read through essentially the Minivan Centurion stuff. But as we were talking about that last week, I think really just identified that's a place we want to maybe kind of dive in a little bit deeper on some of that stuff. So we talked about last week sort of andism versus orism, right? We talked about some of the radical notions, the radical notion from a faith perspective, also from an American standpoint. And then wanted to just dive into a little bit deeper of, we talked about kind of holding the middle and why that's important. But I was wondering if we could maybe talk through like how do we do that, or how does this sort of idea of holding the middle relate to some of the other things that we're trying to teach guys within F3?
So at its most basic, holding the middle means is andism, is saying I have strong opinions that I'm expressing because I believe in them, but they're loosely held. In other words, you disagreeing with me, like Helmut was saying, if you don't want to, I don't hate you, I'm not mad at you. Like it's enough self-control and recognizing that if you drive away people with whom you disagree, that the middle will end up ultimately being very small and thin. So if you take the spectrum of political thought, right, and I believe on one end of that is statist. People believe that's in the governance by the state. The other end is liberalism, which I believe is traditional notions of liberal democracy. And some of these words get kind of used and misused, but that's the way I see the spectrum. So it's not left or right. It's statist and liberal. And if you have a normal curve, the statist would obviously be a communist, somebody like that. And someone who's extremely liberal in my mind would be someone who's approaching no governance at all. Saying, I mean, not anarchy so much as somehow we can live in some utopia where we don't need governance. And right. So
Yeah.
that's just the opposite.
Because every man would be so committed to the ideals that there would be no need for governance, essentially.
That's right. Or that governance is so evil, is so evil that you're better off by the predations of its absence than you are by its empowerment.
So it'd almost be like every man lives on his own plot off the grid, and best of luck to the lot of you.
Yeah. So the kind of guy that views the Constitution of the United States as a suicide pact. Like, we're not supposed to defend ourselves. Like, we're not supposed to project American power beyond the limits of the country under any circumstances. And those two opposite ends of the political spectrum, in my mind, are small and thin and should be. I'm not saying that either one of them are inherently bad or evil. They both have their limitations and they both have their strengths. However, they do not describe the great vast middle, which is, in America, I believe, should be adherence to the radical notion that all men are created equal, right? Life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And the government exists to guarantee those rights. However, because we live in a fallen world, the government has to be charged with powers and authority to take action when necessary to enforce rules for the common good, like where you can throw your trash, in a local context, and maybe in a national context, that we are going to have an income tax so that the federal government can raise funds to raise an army, keep an army in the field, Department of Transportation or whatever, the FAA, things that the government
build roads, all the stuff that they're supposed to do.
It's necessary. That they're necessary. And the debate about what is necessary for the federal government to do as opposed to state or local government, federalism, is a debate that we should always be having in the legislatures at the various levels, right? So city council here in Charlotte, state legislature in Raleigh, if you're in North Carolina, and the Congress and the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., and they are debating laws, right? That the executive is then charged with, as chief magistrate, with enforcing for the common good of all. And the debate over how much statism, over how much liberalism, is that tension, that argument, juxtaposition of opposing viewpoints to learn, to gain wisdom. That argument should and must be done within the limits of andism, acknowledging that what we're trying to do is really get to that greater middle. And it's good to have guys out there saying, we should have almost no government whatsoever. Like, tell us more. You're like a tent peg out there, right? Same on the other end. Look, if there's one single hungry person out there, then everybody should have the same amount of money. We should. Okay, we'll hear more about that. Put the peg out there. Got two pegs holding this tent of governance up. The greater middle is going to say, yeah, bud, we're going to have an army. I'm sorry. And let's have the army, but let's maybe not have a tax collector in the IRS for every 10 people. That seems excessive, right? Let's find that middle.
And I think the problem that we face in all this is that because having these discussions, right, being able to hold these opposing viewpoints in our head at the same time without exploding, without the honest recognition that everything under the tent needs to exist in a way, right? We talk about tentpole leadership in F3, right? Everything under the tent needs to exist in its own way in order to keep the tension correct so that the tent doesn't fall down, right? As much as I don't agree with the statists, I think it's okay that they're there, right? They're offering an opinion and a position that they, even though I don't agree with how they get there, I understand the merit that they're trying to argue for underneath it. My hope would be that I would be able to persuade them to let loose a little on some of those things, right? Same thing on the other end, right? But since we struggle to have these tough conversations, it's really hard. It's really hard to have these conversations, right? It's hard, and our world, our social media, all the different things. I mean, they've made it to where you can't even go to Thanksgiving dinner with your family, the people that raised you and love you, and it is tearing those things apart because we have so much trouble having these conversations and being uncomfortable. And so when Dredd will talk about goo and things like that, right? This theory that no one should be uncomfortable for any reason. That's one of the tenets, right? Oh, but my feelings, right? Like, and because we're unwilling to do that, oftentimes what happens is we just opt for the easy thing. And the easy thing is, well, I don't like it, so let's just make a rule that nobody can do it since I don't like it. And then if we make that rule, we put that over here, and then some other guy goes, well, I don't like that, so guess what? I'm going to put a rule over here. And then, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's
So
what
we
kind of
have
talked about that. Yeah.
we have a system of governance that starts with the Constitution, starts with the Declaration of Independence, actually, and the Constitution of the United States, which is based on English common law, which we inherited from the English, which it creates a tension between the majority, democracy, governance by democracy, and protection of individual liberty, which means that there are certain rights that require a supermajoritorian vote. In other words, 2/3 in some way, and those rights are set out. Your constitutional rights, your civil liberties, like the right to free speech. There's very few ways and times that can be impinged. And it can't be impinged by the majority. It would take an amendment to the Constitution to say, well, the First Amendment's gone. It would no longer have the right to free speech. So that we got from the English, we inherited it, trying to create that tension and diffuse power amongst three branches of governance for that very reason. And it's a very unique system that we have, but it will not work unless the middle holds. So the middle is us. This is your average guy, your cargo shorts wearing Minivan Centurion, the guy that is explaining things to his neighbor in a nice way, like, we ought to do this. I'm like, hold on, let's think this through. What would happen? Well, you agree with me, don't you? I said, I agree with the outcome you seek, but not the process you want to follow. Yeah. I don't understand what you mean. I mean, if we abandon the orderly process of governance set out in our law, our liberal republic, if we abandon it now, claiming this is an exigent circumstance, an emergency circumstance, and we use the power of the state to inflict the outcome we want, then now we have said, you're free to do it on the other side when you have power. I said, so the true liberal says, I'm going to fight for the process and uphold the process. I'll give you a kind of a very simplistic version of the difference between a guy in the middle and the ends. If one party, the leader of one party, says something that is of dubious veracity, might not be true. I don't know if you've ever encountered that. I have, both out of the party of which I'm a member, the Republican Party, and also the party I'm not, at least today, because I was a Democrat. I've encountered in both sides. And there are exactly three ways to view that statement. One, you could be on the party of whom the man who stated it said it, and you could say, it's true because he said it. You're not going to dig down deep into its veracity. You're just going to support it because it came out of the
Party
mouth
line,
of your
baby.
guy. Your guy.
That's my guy.
That's one end. The other end, he's lying. He knows it's not true, and he's lying.
But how do you know that? Because he's the other guy.
He's the other guy. If his lips are moving, he's lying. That's how I know. Right. Now, fighting to hold the middle would say, we must consider whether or not he's mistaken. Not lying, because he's the other guy, not automatically right because he's your guy, but possibly mistaken to determine what the right answer is. And truth is best found through the crucible of the adversarial conflict. Crucible being heat, something produces heat, takes out impurities.
Now, Dredd, why is that?
Because there is no real way on earth, sinful earth that we are, ever, to know everything about every situation. I have enough knowledge that we could possibly say, I know this is right. There's no giant, brilliant guy we'd appoint to do that and say, you are going to be the truth determiner. There's no way to do that because we're human beings.
Yeah.
And the way that truth is ultimately determined by the tribunals of truth, whether that be a judge, an appellate court, a committee in Congress, whatever you have, is to hear from both sides through the adversarial process. Side one, what do you say? Well, I say this is the truth. Side two, what do you say? That's not true. Here's why.
I mean,
okay.
Even if you boiled it down to it's a very simple thing like a traffic accident. Right?
Exactly. 12 people.
The fact is, car hit car. Now, one guy standing on this corner, one guy standing on this corner, two different stories. The only way to find the truth, or at least your best guess at what it is, right, is to have these two things, right?
Right.
It's kind of what you're saying, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You have an automobile collision at an intersection. The plaintiff says he was driving through, there was a green light, and he got T-boned by the defendant who ran a red light. And that factual dispute has to be determined by the tribunal. That's 12 jurors through the guidance of the judge who's controlling the evidence that they see. So they're only seeing what we would consider to be evidence that is reliable. Through years and decades and centuries of figuring out what kind of evidence is reliable, to wit, eyewitness testimony. Bob, who was standing on the street corner when it happened, not Mike, who Bob told his story to. That's hearsay. And that means that Mike can't be, or Bob can't be cross-examined because he's not there. That's why the rule of hearsay exists. So to determine whether or not the light was red or green when the defendant ran through it, no one will ever know 100% for sure. But based on the evidence that the jury sees and their common sense, they are charged by the judge to come to a conclusion as to which side is just a little bit more right by the greater weight of the evidence. Doesn't mean 100%. Doesn't even mean in a criminal case, which is beyond a reasonable doubt, which is something considerably more. Just that one side says green, one side says red. One little tiny pea bit more. You believe the plaintiff, you find that the light was red for the defendant, then you must find for the plaintiff in this case. Always considering the fact that it might have been yellow. It might have been yellow. Yellow's the middle.
And maybe somebody was mistaken.
Somebody was mistaken.
And maybe somebody was mistaken.
Right. I don't think I've ever convinced a jury that a man was lying. And I think the main reason is because I never try. It's very hard. It's very hard to do. People do not want to believe that a man would put his hand on the Holy Bible and then tell an untruth.
Yeah.
But they are willing to believe that the man did that and simply mistaken. And by pointing out that he lacked the capacity from where he might have been standing or what he said to be able to be right, that he was inconsistent in what he's saying because he said something different before, and pointing out that he has bias. And that bias may have color the way he sees, and you point those things out to him, and you let him answer those questions. And at the end, that's why I have a closing. You say to the jury, ladies and gentlemen, you are here to determine truth as best you can find it from the evidence you've seen. Call upon your common sense and the evidence, what you heard from witnesses, what you saw from the evidence, and you come to a determination. And that is how we govern ourselves in the United States of America. It absolutely requires the middle to be held. 100%. 100%. You lose the
So-
middle and the two ends pull apart, and now you have factions.
Got people shooting people in the face.
Which
Disconnected
is sort
factions.
of where some people might find themselves today, right? Or some
Mhm.
parts of the culture. So then in order to hold the middle or even rebuild the middle, we need men to learn
Yes.
virtuous
gonna-
leadership.
Absolutely. That's what I was just
Yep.
going to say. So outside of the civics lesson, which I think
Is helpful. Yeah, that's
well, it's not just helpful, but I think it's it's illustrative,
yeah.
right? I think it really paints the picture. So if you're really listening to what Dredd was saying there, it really paints the picture. Although that is the judicial process, right? That's
Yep.
how they handle it there. But that is a great snapshot of how we ought to approach most things in our lives as we interact with other people in our communities and other places, even as we interact with other F3 guys.
Yep.
Right? Where we say, hey, I hear you. I understand that you're, in fact, I'll give you a quick one. Somebody, this is so funny too. Like somebody wrote in the other day to the SLT and says, hey, I really appreciate the lack of politics that I see in anything that the nation does and says, right? We don't tweet anything about politics stuff. We just don't talk about it. And then their next comment was, but I can't remember exactly how they phrased it, but essentially it was like, but, since, aren't we worried about when militias arise and, maybe this is some kind of secret thing that we don't say it now, but we will say it later. And what about if a guy does that, whatever, and all this kind of crazy stuff. And I was like, I don't understand what he's talking about. Let me be more clear. And our guy, the SLT was like, should we answer this? And I was like, I don't think so, but you guys do what you want. I think we just let that one go. But the point is that, guys say that and they think that and they feel that, but there's still this human desire to go, yeah. I mean, I want you to be apolitical so long as it agrees with me. As soon as you start to disagree with me, then I'm really going to, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself, right? But everybody has to be able to stay in this middle place. And what I tried to remind them of, and what we talked about as an SLT was, those are things that are of the world, right? And in order to, if you want to play in the world, then you'll end up in one of these two sides, most likely, because that's how the world right now is designed in our culture. So we have to admit that we are above those things. We are operating outside of the worldly things. We are focused on things of a greater place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, whatever happens there in this political realm or any of this kind of stuff, or these opposing factions, that's really not interesting to us, because neither of those things, as Dredd just very clearly pointed out, neither of those things are objective truth necessarily, because we don't have that ability in a lot of cases to know the objective truth. We know what we believe to be true. We know what we have seen. We have evidence of our own, right, to lead us down this road to say, like, I think this is the truth. This is the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, in most things, we have lived experience, right? And people love to borrow that as some sort of objective truth, but it is not, right? But if you live in the world, you're going to end up on one of these two sides. And what we're saying is as F3 men, as virtuous leaders, as Minivan Centurions, we have to remove ourselves from that world that separates us, and remove ourselves from that and become this higher and holier middle, right? That says, you guys are going to do whatever you want to do to split up. And I get you. I'm not mad at you for it. But I hope to persuade you to understand that even though you disagree with each other, all men are alike unto God.
Mm-hmm.
We're all created equal. There is no separation in there on that point. And so if we can admit we're all on the same team, right? Now, you might think the play on fourth down is to punt. You might think it's to, go for the extra yard to get the first down. We can disagree, but we both know we want to win the game, right?
Yeah.
So instead of getting mad at that guy and saying, like, you moron, I can't believe you punted. Like, we got a lot of downs to still make up the difference here. So everybody relax, right? Everybody take it easy and recognize we're all on the same team. We're all trying to get to the same place.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of the overarching message of the middle of the Minivan Centurion, is to say, we're all on the same team. We're all trying to get to the same place. And so therefore, let's go through this process together of how we juxtapose ideas and come into conflict with each other in a healthy way that is productive, right? Maybe uncomfortable, but aren't you an F3 guy? So aren't you used to doing uncomfortable things?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not, I might suggest you go out in the rain once in a while and work out because that's uncomfortable. Try and get used to it.
You hit a good word there with the lived experience, because that someone who is governed by lived experience is actually a liberal, not a liberal. And a liberal is by definitions focused on subjectivity instead of what would the reasonable man do. That's an objective standard. What is reasonable under this circumstance? That's what a jury is asked to look at. That would be objective. It doesn't matter who you are. So if a reasonable man would not run a red light, would not do so, and you did so, that's negligence. You have done something the reasonable man wouldn't do. That's a violation of the objective standard. A liberal is an objectivist in that sense. He looks for guidance to the reasonable man, who comes from law and comes from tradition, whatever reasonable might be. The liberal instead would say, well, what were you feeling when you ran that red light? Had somebody run a red light against you before? Is the
So are you
color red
justified? Yeah.
right? Is the color red disturbing to you? Were you afraid of it? I mean, not explaining being silly, but you get my point.
Did
So-
you actually identify the light as green?
Right. So this is something else that the Minivan Centurion has to be very brave about.
Yeah.
About 20 years ago, there was a kerfluffle. I can't remember what school it was, somewhat Midwestern school, if I recall, over a professor's use of the word niggardly. Niggardly means cheap, basically, stingy. Its etymology is from Old English, whereas the N word is etymologically French and describes the color of skin of African Americans, or and it turned into ultimately, obviously, a very vile racial epithet. However, other than NIG, they aren't the same word and don't come from the same place and don't have the same meaning at all. So a student in this class, and again, I can't remember what school, objected to the word negatively, and I think it was in an English class, was like Chaucer or something. It was used, and they determined not to use the word because of that. To that kerfluffle, the liberal would say, it's not objectively unreasonable to use a word which the meaning of which is stingy, even if it sounds like a word that's a racial epithet. The liberal would say, well, what did the hearer of the word feel inside when she heard it? That's exactly what they said. Because she said, well, I don't care if it's a different word. It still made me feel like it was the same word, and I felt marginalized.
Yeah.
So the liberal has to say, I'm sorry you felt that way, but we're not going to undo the traditions of reasonableness in our nation because of the way you feel.
Right.
Because once we start down that road, we're giving into orism and the opposite ends. Because just as there are going to be those liberals who are saying, you must use the words we say you use because of the way we feel. On the opposite end, there's going to be guys that say, I'm going to say those words because you say I can't. And the Minivan Centurion in the middle is going to say, you have the right to say it. Whether you do or say it or not is something you're going to have to make a determination in every situation. I myself believe that a man has the absolute right to use the N-word or any other slur. I also believe that he shouldn't do it. In the same way, a tomato is a fruit that you shouldn't use in a fruit salad, right?
Yeah.
That's wisdom. To be unduly contentious and to cause people anger over nothing makes no sense. It's on the other end. It tears away from the middle. Then again, to not stand up for the right to do so is cowardly and gives power to people's feelings, which will ultimately destroy us in the other direction.
Yeah.
So
Because then there is no standard.
Then there is no standard. Everything is subjective liberalism, and a republic can't be run that way. So what do we do as minivan centurions when we say, I'm going to fight to hold the middle of my nation? The fight is almost inside yourself to determine, how do I preserve the rights of objectivity? How do I preserve those while winsomely appealing to those who feel otherwise? How do I do it?
Is some of that also the internal fight with the jester and sort of
Yeah.
the fight against the status quo and
Sure.
like
Right.
all of these things that we're, I think we are trying to teach guys right through
Right.
the Q source stuff.
That's why you have to have dominion over what comes out of your mouth.
Yeah.
You have to be able to exert self-control. If you can't, then you're going to find yourself on one end or the other. And ultimately we're all going to look around and, man, we're all on different ends.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll be in court arguing out something against the other guy, whatever, and gets hot, because we're passionate, we care about what we're talking about. We walk out the door, and I say, "Hey, Bob, good job. Shake his hand. I'll see you next time." And my client will say, "How the heck did you just argue with that guy for 30 minutes? He called you this, he said that, and he said that." I said, "That none of that matters. He's just trying to get me off my game." He goes, "But you just did that for 30 minutes. You walk out. How can you shake the guy's hand?" I said, "He's a friend of mine." He's like, "I just don't understand lawyers. I don't understand how you can do that." I said, "It's our."
You're like, and you're what's wrong with America? Oh wait, sorry,
Right.
no.
I said, it's you got to look at it like there's 3 islands. You're on one island, and your opposite party's on the other island, and you guys have no bridge or no way to communicate because of this dispute. You're stuck on those islands. You each have a lawyer joins you on that island, but we have a third island, and that's where we meet to determine what's in the best interest of each of you so that we can serve you, so we can resolve the dispute. And if you don't want me on that island, then I would say you're doing yourself a disservice and you need to find another lawyer. If I want to know you'll fight, you watch me fight. I'm going to fight like crazy. But if it's a football game, I don't hit the other guy until the whistle blows and everybody's helmet's on. So if you're looking for me to throw cheap shots before the whistle blows, no, you need somebody else to do that. I won't do that. What I will do is when the whistle blows and the ball's kicked, I'm going to lay that guy out as hard as I have to win the game within the rules of the game. Because if there are no rules of the game, then let's go screw having court. Take that building down. Let's do this.
Now it's the purge.
Let's give all the power and the gold and the women to the strongest guy. Let's just have a guy figure out how he could put together a clan or a gang, and that guy can just dominate the weaker men and the women in the community. And then you have
This
a choice.
sounds familiar.
Yeah, you have a choice. Do I join that guy or do I run? Let's do that. I said, I think you're exaggerating. You're making too much out of this. I said, no, because it's the first step down that path is to say that you can't have a reasoned and controlled argument, juxtaposition of opposing viewpoints without hating the other guy. If you can't do that, then we don't have a country. And when I look out at social media and all that stuff, I see a certain percentage of men who cannot do it.
Yeah.
And whenever I hear a guy say, well, I'm getting off Twitter because it's cesspool, and I was like, you got to stay in the line, man.
Yeah.
We need every swinging Richard in the line. What are you saying? Stay on there and use it right. Stay on there and keep
Be the
fighting
example.
for the middle. Be that
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Keep doing that. Don't, because if you leave the middle and you're like, well, I ain't joining either end, I'm just going to go wander off into the hill somewhere. Well, I hate to say it, there's nowhere to hide.
Well, then you're just joining the other end.
You really kind of are.
Right.
I mean,
You're
in its own way, right?
right. You really
the-
kind of are.
I'll just govern
He-
myself, and the rest of you can leave me
Right.
alone, and I'll leave you alone, and nobody does
Right.
anything for each other.
Every
That's not
man is
really
a
how it's supposed to go
difficult
either.
person, a manager of difficult people, or a hermit.
All right.
Which are you?
There ain't no fourth guy.
There ain't no fourth guy.
Both of the first two. I don't know what that
Yeah. Well,
Look, I'm all three at different
sometimes.
times. Like,
I'm all three. Yeah.
Sometimes. I think I say what I say in that is every day. You know,
Yeah.
every day. And it is the manager of difficult people, the guy that Jesus Christ called the peacemaker, who is blessed, right?
yeah, I gotta tell you,
that
and
is the man.
And that's one of the tough things, Plague, I think, as you're kind of bringing this around, trying to teach us a lesson here, and I appreciate that. I think that, you know, sometimes it's super easy for me to, I shouldn't say super easy, but much easier to get along or to hold the middle with a guy I know, right? Who I have some history with or whatever. My problem sometimes arises, though, in not fighting against those guys that I don't know, that are just sort of this voice out there somewhere, this side or this whatever, right? And I really was listening. You know, I listened to speeches and stuff as I get ready in the morning, and usually it's addresses from leadership of our church, and you know, and they really were just yesterday. You know, and I, in my little shower notes, you know, I'm writing stuff down, and I'm reminded all the time, and I keep thinking to myself, at some point I'm going to get this right. At some point I'm going to get this right. At some point I'm going to get this right. I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm getting there. But really, like, it's not enough just to say that you believe that all men are created equal.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
It's not enough just to even believe it in your mind that all men are created equal. It's not enough to say that all are alike unto God, or to even admit that we could potentially all be on the same team. It's not enough to intellectually say those things. My heart really has to change.
Mm-hmm.
I have to.
Yep.
And man, that's hard. It's become much easier for me to say it intellectually than it used to be. Right? I used to not even say it. Right? Now I'll say it, and I kind of believe it, and in my heart I believe it a little.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I still think I've got a reasonable gap. I feel like I'm getting better, you know, all the time. But there's a reasonable gap in there where, you know, even these people that say these idiot, moron, stupid things, in my mind, I go, how could you be so? Wait, nope. That's my brother. That's my brother.
We got to recognize that people that are overcome by fear and envy and hate are anchorless. They're like anchorless ships, and they are swirling in the current and not making headway, and just have nothing to cling to. There's nothing holding them steady. And a Minivan Centurion has to have his anchors, and I believe those anchors for us are the two radical notions. And I always want to repeat this for fear that it would, because I don't want someone who does not follow Christ to think, well, you're saying I don't follow Christ, so that radical notion. I said, it is not that you believe the tomb was empty. It is that you recognize that belief that many hold changed the world. Maybe it wasn't empty. I mean, I don't believe that. Maybe it wasn't. But from that point onward, selfless concern for the welfare of others became the watchword of reasonableness. That it became the goal, the golden rule, the objective.
Yeah, that
Up
wasn't
until
taught
that-
before he got
No,
here.
up until that point, I mean, the
Eye for an eye.
the Jews didn't see the pagans that way.
Right.
I mean, of course not. And of course, the Romans didn't see the Jews that way. Of course not. But if you happen to be a fellow that's like, sorry, I'm not convinced of divinity of Jesus Christ, but yeah, I guess you're right. That idea that people attribute to him, that swept the world. That swept the world so much so that people pretend they're Christians when they're not. So that's what I mean. So the radical notion, the underlying radical notion that we are to love each other like our brothers, that we're supposed to set ourselves aside, that not only dominates Christian theology, every denomination, it actually dominates all of secular thought and philosophy as well. There is no predominant secular philosophy of hating your brother and doing unto him what you wouldn't want done to you. I mean, I don't think.
Right.
I mean, not that anybody would express out loud. I mean, even amongst criminals, they don't say that. It really is an amazing thing how ubiquitous it is, and it underpins everything.
Yeah.
And its twin, 17 centuries later, of all men are created equal, has done the same. It has swept the world. Even the most obvious tyrannical dictators call themselves a president who was duly elected by 99% of the vote.
It's
right?
amazing.
Right. Both. Yeah. They drape themselves in all the vestiges of democracy because they know they at least have to fake it. So, right?
It's true. It's true.
They
No,
at
it's true.
least have to fake
I
it.
can't come in here and tell them I just took over. That'd be
Right.
terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why
I mean,
somebody.
that's what you did. I know, but I can't say it.
Right. Somebody who has absolutely no inclination to follow Christ is still goes around saying he's a wise teacher. Why? Why don't you just say everything he said was complete bollocks? You don't believe in his divinity. You don't believe in his very existence. But if he existed, a lot of things he said are very useful. I mean, Richard Dawkins, lifelong atheist, the atheist of all atheists, now says, well, I would never believe in it, but I surely do believe that you're better living your life as a Christian. We all are.
One of the things that I'm hoping to dive into, so we had kind of, off air started talking about the relationship between investment and influence, right? And so I do think some of what's needed to talk to other guys about these topics, right, in order to commit, because I think most men, right, if they've decided I don't believe in Jesus, I'm not a member of the Christian faith, that the explanation you just gave, Dredd, like it may take some relationship or influence to even have that conversation, right? And so then I think there's kind of this idea of like investment and influence in the relationship there that hopefully we can dive into.
I think it starts with
the next
sorry
episode.
for getting distracted by Dawkins here.
You're good.
I was thinking of Christopher Hitchens. That's what I was thinking.
Christopher Hitchens, you're right. He is
My
dead.
bad. Yeah.
Been dead. You're right. Similar kind of idea, atheism. It starts with Minivan Centurion, in my mind, starts with making a commitment to knowing what you believe. And that might sound like a little weird way to put it. Like, what do you mean knowing what I believe? Don't you mean what I believe? I think there's a difference between believing things and knowing what you believe. And to me, knowing what you believe means that whatever
Being able to
subconscious is
articulate it
driving
and defend it?
well, that's step out. That's even third step. So
even further.
there's
Okay.
there's what you believe, and I think we all have. Everybody has beliefs. You can't not, right?
Yeah.
but I think a lot of people don't know what they are. They don't know it. And I think that's a part of like Freudian psychoanalysis, is to draw out what it is you're actually subconsciously believe. Like, what do you believe? So knowing what you believe firmly and reducing it, at least in your own mind, to a systematic, what I call belief system. Organized religion is an example of that. Our constitutional federalist order is an example of that. Knowing what you believe and then making a study of it so you have a deep understanding of it. So it's not enough just to know it, to really understand it sufficiently and then dark, so that you can express it persuasively to others. I would hope that somebody watching me with all these things, and I'm not talking off the cuff. Well, I am, but I mean off the cuff in the sense I don't have this written down. I have said these same things 1 million times in 1 million different scenarios. I started learning them as a kid in school, got more in college, had them driven in my 9 years in the military, and then law school, and then my study of the Bible and study of constitutional order, the roots of order. I know what I believe, and I believe I understand what I know, so that I started to articulate it fearlessly, not fearlessly that, oh, I'll never make a mistake, fearlessly that I no longer cared if I would. That consider the fact if I misspoke and somebody pointed out to me, like in that sense, I want to be disagreed with. I want people to say, well, you know what, Dredd really shouldn't have 2 houses, Congo. We shouldn't have. Okay, tell me why. I want to know. I want to see the flaws, man. I want that crucible. I want to know.
I think the way you are able to articulate what you believe, right, I think is a skill, right, that we want to teach other men. Because, I mean, life comes at you fast, and that's really the price of truth. It's the price of truth and fame. Just when I think I'm free at last, I find that trouble knows my name.
Not getting
not
getting
What is that? I don't recognize that.
I don't.
That is Don
that?
McLean. Don McLean, Truth and Fame is the name of the song.
Say the only other song that he even wrote, maybe sang twice on a stage somewhere after American Pie. Then he started singing. They're like, "Get the hell off the stage! Sing American Pie again."
Well, I'll tell you, American Pie is a great song, but you know what? I think his best song is Vincent, about Vincent Van Gogh.
Oh, that is a good one. Yeah,
Starry Night.
That's right. I forgot about that one.
That song like
this is his third song.
My head.
This is great. I really think, and especially my conversation with Milk this morning, I think guys are hungry for more diving into this a little bit deeper, to really like how do we teach guys to rebuild the middle, right, in some places, right? I think that's something we can really help with.
It's our job.
Well, deliver this message to Milk for me. Tell the Daily Milk, I need him on the Twitter machine daily.
Yeah, we don't call
every day.
Dredd ain't calling him the Daily Milk because he's the every other day milk.
The weekly milk, the EOD,
he's
every other day milk.
He's got to be the consistent daily milk, not the inconsistent.
Yeah.
Edge of the blade, it's calling me sharp. Stone on steel in the darkest spots. Warning where the steel it grinds. Whetstone whispers through my mind. Spin that soul, make the edge come alive. Cut through the noise just to survive. Feel the rhythm, feel the bite. Whetstone screaming in the night. Hands on fire, pushing through the grind. Sweat and sparks leave the past behind. Sharp and ready for the fight ahead. Whetstone house till the hunger's fed.